Hey there, George Anderson here with a little video for you today about resistance training, strength training, in particular body weight strength training. Now, when I was a young personal trainer, and in fact right the way through my personal training career, I would regularly get asked the question, George, if you had just one exercise that you could do for the rest of your life, what would it be? And that used to make me laugh thinking about the ridiculous hypothetical situation that I would be in where I could only do one exercise. But I used to get onto my soapbox about this and say, well, there is no such thing as a best exercise, and what we need is variety. And actually the best exercise is the thing that you're going to enjoy and you're going to do consistently and all those things. And people would sort of, look around nervously and make their excuses and leave when I started off on one of those tirades. But really, I guess the question that they were really asking was, look, I get that exercise is important. I'm not necessarily like you in the sense of loving it and just doing it for the sake of it. Personally, I liken myself to my pet Labrador in that I need to go out for a sniff on a regular basis and stretch my legs in the sunshine. Otherwise I start getting a little bit tetchy, and I wouldn't quite say that I start weeing on the carpet and gnawing the furniture, but it's the human equivalent of that. But people say, I'm not like you, I don't really kind of absolutely love it in the same way that you do perhaps, but you know, I do want to make sure that I'm doing the best things in the shortest possible amount of time. So kind of what are the shortcuts? You know, what are the most time efficient exercises? That was the real question that people or asking. Although I don't get asked that question as much these days, it's still something that crops up from time to time. And I look back over the years and the sessions that I've done, literally thousands, probably 15,000 plus client sessions that I've delivered over the years, plus numerous personal trainer workshops and courses and masterclasses. And I think, well, with all the experience I've got, the equipment that I'm familiar with, what would be my top 5 best exercises for general fitness, general health and well-being? And I thought I might be able to come up with some really funky, fancy, exciting personal trainer secret type exercises. But really it kept coming back to 5 of possibly the most boring exercises on the planet. And I'm going to share what those exercises are with you right now. But I also want to tell you a little bit about how you can build these exercises and any other body weight exercise or other exercise for that matter into a training system that is easy for you to do at the correct intensity, the correct level for whatever fitness level you're at, because obviously everyone's going to be different. But those 5 best exercises I'm sorry to say that they are, as I said, pretty boring. We've got number 1, the press up. The humble press up. Number 2, if that press up is for the chest, shoulders and arms as you push, then the pulling equivalent of that I'd say would be the pull up, or as I'll explain in a second, the lying row. But the press up number 1, the pull up number 2, number 3, let's have something in there for the legs. Let's go for the squat. We need something for the core, so we're going to go with the plank. Controversial, I know, there's plenty of other core exercises, but remember I can only pick one, so I'm going to go with the plank. And number 5, we need something that's going to work the whole body, get the heart rate thumping as well. So I'm going to go with the burpee. I'm sorry, there is no secret to this, and none of those exercises are really, really exciting and interesting, but you can adapt them. In fact, you need to adapt them. You need to change them, and you need to come up with an option if you're including these in your training program. And if you're following any kind of training program and they have some strength work in, I reckon that you'll have some equivalent of these. It's not how complex or unstable the exercise is, or how advanced the version is. What's most important is the quality with which you perform it. So I always say that, I got this from some mentor or other in my early days as a PT. You train the muscle, you train the movement, not the muscle. Train the movement, not the muscle. Let's make sure that we're clear on that. So in a press up, for example, you're not just trying to train the triceps, the shoulders, and the chest muscles. You're trying to train that really strict, precise movement. Whatever angle you've got your hands, whatever position you've got your hands, whatever position whether your knees down, your feet are on the floor, it doesn't matter. You're still trying to train a precise movement. And to do that, especially if you're, let's say at the beginner end of your strength conditioning program and you're a little bit unstable, perhaps your core isn't as strong as it could be, then it's important that you regress whichever exercise you're doing to a level that you are able to do it correctly. And that is the absolute key. Whatever the exercise is, whatever you're doing, whatever you're engaging in, when it comes to exercise, do it as precisely and as perfectly as possible and make that your goal. So you're getting better at doing the movement before you start increasing the load. So with a press up, the classic example with a press up is that you start with your knees on the floor, and that's not a girl's press up, that's just a regular press up from a half position from the knees. And once you're able to do that movement and your core is strong enough to enable you to do that, then you can progress to doing a few reps with your feet and from your feet and with your knees off the ground. So there's loads of ways of progressing and making exercises harder. Do more reps, do them faster, do multiple sets, have a less rest in between sets, do them as a circuit. There's loads of ways to make it harder. I'm sure if you've done any kind of conditioning work, you've probably come up with a few of these training systems in the past. But it always comes back down to that one thing. Exercise, especially when it comes to strength conditioning work, it needs to be done with the best possible technique. That's how you get results. That's how you make progress. Not by trying to do the most complicated or convoluted version of an exercise because it looks fancy and you've seen somebody on YouTube doing it or your mate's doing it, and therefore you feel like you should be able to do it, and you can do it, but the technique is all over the place. That's not the way to make progress. The way to make progress is to strip it back, get the technique right, make sure you're comfortable with that, feel that, and use that as your